everyone. Welcome back to Keep Indiana Learning. I'm so happy that you are with us today as we discuss Chapter 4 in our book study series, Keep Indiana Reading Digital for Good Edition. My name is Melissa Wally. Thanks, Tim. And I am an innovation coach with Keep Indiana Learning and an ed tech specialist with Hanover Community Schools in Cedar Lake, Indiana. Diana Knox is my usual co host, but she could not be here today. So, with me, I have two fellow innovation coaches, Tim Arnold and Jennifer Stewart. And chapter 4 is really about being informed. It dives into the importance of helping our students become informed digital citizens and us too, making sure that we can all separate fact from fiction and identify bias and understand how information really lives online. The author, Mr. Clatta, reminds us that simply being online doesn't make us or our students digitally literate. And why is that important? Well, because it's easy to assume that our native digital users are good at tech because it's just always existed in their lives, which where learning is not true. In reality, they need to be taught specific skills, including intentionally analyzing and learning to evaluate the digital content as they're consuming it. That really doesn't naturally happen for anyone, including our young learners. So before we start getting too deep, I do want to give a quick reminder that this book study series can be found on the Keep Indiana Learning YouTube channel. And let's get back to the introduction. So Tim, would you like to say hello?
Sure, thank you. Hi, my name is Tim Arnold. I'm a district e-learning specialist with Richmond Community Schools, and I spent 26 years as a 7 through 12 social studies educator. Also an innovation coach with Keep Indiana Learning, Indiana University Distinguished Jacobs Educator, a Canvas District admin, and serve as a member of the HEC board.
Okay, I'm Jen Stewart. I am currently a STEM teacher, but prior to this iteration of my career, I taught junior high language arts and social studies for 20 years. I'm also an Apple Learning coach and an innovation coach as well with Keep Indiana Learning.
So it's going to be a great chapter. So it starts out right into it, and there was a quote from Einstein that said, "Information is not knowledge," and it was on page 68, and it says so much in so few words, and that all of this access to the internet, to just everything at our fingertips, doesn't equate to a love of learning. What does help kids love to learn is experiences they encounter along the way through their life and through education, and then a sense of accomplishment is a true motivator for humans in general and really helps everyone learn to be a learner. As adults, whether we are parents, teachers, grandparents, whatever that role is, it's our job to encourage kids to be curious and be curious learners and continue to inspire them to always want to know more. When I was reading this, I was thinking back about being a child and seeing that Encyclopedia Britannica collection, and I wanted that, and I had access when I went to the public library, which I usually walked to, and if I visited the school library, and I would go there to do my school reports. And I can remember for some reason I would like thumb through randomly and then like pick a random page, close my eyes. Usually it was the M volume because that's my name, and point to something on a random page like I'm going to learn about, and like point to a page. It would be like, I don't know, Madagascar or something. I don't know why I did that. Probably everyone did that, but it's something I remembered that I did as I learned. And I never had my own set, but my family didn't have a set. My grandparents didn't have a set. In theory, I lacked access then. Unlike now, when I carry all that info around on my phone, on my iPad, on my laptop, everywhere I go, I have all of that with me. Um, so yeah, it's such a paradox of then and now.
Yeah. Speaking of that information, one of the things that said in the book in this chapter was that the internet contains around 149 zettabytes of information. I have no idea what a zettabyte is. And I just learned before we started this, that in the book, it actually says 44 zettabytes. And Jen confirmed that, wow, it's 149 now. So thanks to her for that information. That's awesome. So much more just since this book came out. By comparison, the entire Encyclopedia Britannica that you referenced has about 1 gigabyte. And so for me as a thinker, as a human, as an educator, I'm thinking there's no longer a specific collection of information that all people are going to know or even should know. It's just not possible. There's just too much. But it's important to remember that access doesn't equate learning, which is really, I think, the purpose of that first quote. And I love that you mentioned curiosity, because that is the key to deeper learning. It leads us to ask those critical questions and engage in complex reasoning. And it makes me think of my all-time favorite EduProtocol. It's called a Wicked Hydra, where you start with that challenging prompt or question on the board, and the job of the students is to come up and write their questions and connect their questions to it, and it just kind of grows and grows and grows across the whiteboard. And that's what it made me think of when I read that quote.
I think it's amazing that we have access to all this information and that we can literally get all of our questions answered just like in seconds. We don't have to go search through a card catalog or an encyclopedia anymore. But having all that access is great, but it's also scary.
You're right. It can be intimidating. Humans are already curious. Like we all start out curious, and we think about our kids and students in our classes and how they all have these different interests and what they want to learn about. And we don't have to like make our students curious or teach them how to be curious, but what we need to do is model what to do with that curiosity, and modeling asking questions and thinking out loud and doing something with those thoughts, not just leaving that behind like, oh, I wonder about that, and then just kind of walking away from it. I like what was said in the book, that simple approach of modeling an online search to find out information like on the spot. You're wondering something, well, let's find out. um, and like some kids don't feel comfortable asking questions in class, or they think they're going to be laughed at for not knowing the answer. So modeling that process of, I don't know the answer. I don't know everything. I'm not the sage on the stage. And showing that vulnerability and then trying to find out shows that even the teacher doesn't know everything, and that's okay.
Yeah, agreed. The part in that, I think it was on page 70, that grabbed me was that parents should show more interest in their kids' exploration than in their mastery. That really stopped me. And I think I agree with that, but I don't know that I exercise that with my own children. And the other thing mentioned in that same vein was creating that family culture in which asking good questions is valued even more than having the right answer. So important to the topic that we're discussing today. And all of this, everything that everyone has said here, shows us what a good opportunity is to use tech for good, which is sort of the point of the book, Digital for Good. When we're encouraging curiosity in kids and using technology to find answers to questions, they can begin to see the value of the digital space. And I mean that value beyond just entertainment. If they don't use it for good questions and searches, they may not know the value beyond games and videos. But as you mentioned, Melissa, with just a little bit of modeling, those curious learners, they can really begin to recognize the digital world, the access to it, as a very, very powerful learning library and not just an entertainment machine. So I agree that modeling of digital learning can happen at almost any moment. So that other thing that grabbed me there, page 76, that stopped me in my tracks. False information is 70% more likely to be retweeted than the truth. That was an MIT research study. We have to address that. That's something that we have to talk about with kids. We have to work our way through that. So that's something I'm interested in talking about a little bit later here.
Well, so the book goes on to say it's not just a United States problem. It's not just a us problem. The Program for International Student Assessment, which PISA, which gets quoted a lot for a lot of different things, our math readiness and other things, said that 9 in 10 students worldwide were unable to determine the validity of information sources. So, and that's on page 78. So our kids can't tell. And then, you said that the information is 70% more likely to be retweeted. And so you have those two things that build up to be a major problem. One of the things that the book talks about, and we can help model this for our kids, is that spidey sense where we look at something and we question it. We don't just take it for granted that because I saw it on the internet, it must be true. Or once Lisa Simpson said, well, I saw it on a restaurant placemat, so it must be true. So it's kind of the same thing where we've got to develop that sense where we question the things that we look at and just don't take it for granted because it is on the internet. And that kind of reminded me of something else where another Spider-Man reference where we talk about with great power, which is great power of the internet, comes great responsibility for ourselves and for our students and children.
Yeah, it does become overwhelming when you think about it. And I think we have to remember how you start to think well, how can we begin to tackle this? But we have to start small. Even just talking about it occasionally will help. We're starting small because all of this already exists. This problem exists. It exists with children, it exists with adults. But as long as we're allowing our children, our adolescents, our teenagers to know that this problem exists, I think that that's somewhere. And answering questions using digital tools once in a while will help kids realize that there's a purpose to the type of technology. It's like you said, Tim, it's not just for entertainment value. It's not just for social media. We don't have to always use formalized lesson plans, or certainly have some sort of formalized examples to use at home with our kids. Conversation is really important as well.
And as our children become more informed, we want them to look at the information they absorb and determine if it has value. Is this important or not? And like we said, there's so much information out there, and we don't come by this naturally. It takes practice. And so we have to have those conversations with our students and with our families. The book made a reference to a museum and being a curator in a museum. There are so many artifacts that they can't show all of them. They can only pick the things that are important. And we have to do that. We have to teach our kids how to do that too.
Jen, I love that phrase, that becoming a curator. I think that what I took from that, and the key to curation for our students, is learning how to find useful information through asking good questions, learning how to choose the best source of the ones that are available, evaluating the usefulness of the sources that we've chosen. And then maybe the most important one today is dealing with alternative facts, which I'll just call misinformation. I've got a few go-tos that I absolutely love. As a social studies teacher, I used to work with a group called SHEG, the Stanford History Education Group, the name is now the Digital Inquiry Group. And they have a tremendous free curriculum for history teachers to teach just those skills to their students. But specifically inside there's one called the Civic Online Reasoning Curriculum. And it's not just for history students. There's a science section. There's kind of a free curriculum that anybody can use. And those can be really powerful touch points for kids and teachers to have a place to start if you're not sure where to start. And then the other one that I really learned about last year from a fellow innovation coach, Stevie Frank, is the News Literacy Project, where you have things like Checkology and Rumor Guard that are up to the minute. And you can say, hey, here's something we just saw on social media. Let's run it through the check. Let's see if it's accurate or not. And those, so the Civic Online Reasoning and the News Literacy Project are two things that I could not recommend more highly. Take a look at both of those after you watch this, and take a look at what's offered there. The last thing in this section that stuck with me was we're really about addressing the inherent inequalities of the face-to-face world. We know those exist, right? And so the ability to use this information that's out there well helps us access expertise, whether it's synchronously or asynchronously. It helps us address accessibility, whether it's AI or speech to text or text to speech or whatever it is that you need to use. And finally, it allows us to personalize learning, whether that's AI chatbots or writing feedback rooms or whatever it might be. That's going to be inherently motivating to people if they feel like their learning is personalized. And all of those things we can enhance by really dealing with these issues with our students.
I want to add to your list of some resources, some of the ones that I use personally. If I'm not sure about something I see, I use Snopes.com. That is a great fact check website. Allsides.com, which exactly what it says. It presents information from both sides, and then you can make your decision from there. And then SciCheck. Science is near and dear to my heart. And there's a lot of misinformation that needs to be dealt with. And that's a great place for to go and look and double check. Because again, not everything we hear or see on the internet is true. If we're looking for tools to teach these skills to our students, Common Sense Education has some great media literacy lessons that I like to use with my students. There's one, and it frightens me how good my kids are at it, but it's all about using clickbait, and encourages kids to understand what clickbait is and why we should or should not click on things. And that's one of our favorite Common Sense lessons.
Awesome. Well, for this chapter, we'd like to leave you with a discussion question to take or use at your schools. If you're working through this book as a group, take some time to think about the following question. Think about this statement. Digital literacy is the foundation for all other aspects of digital citizenship. What does that mean in practical terms for your classroom or your school?
Yeah, that is a great question, and it really gives us an opportunity to reflect on how we are implementing and emphasizing digital citizenship, because, Digital Citizenship Week is not enough anymore. It's a great time to really put a spotlight on it, but we have to go beyond that. We owe it to our kids and, just to making sure that they really understand. So with that, to wrap up the episode, we have our challenge. And our challenge this week is to take time to teach students to evaluate sources using a simple routine. So for that, you can start small if this is a new practice. For example, choose or co-create a checklist. For example, who made this and why? And then apply it during a lesson, a task, like a research task, or a discussion on current events. And then encourage students to continue to question and discuss their findings. And, it really is a great way to encourage our students to be curious learners and understand the importance of evaluating digital sources. They can't just take what they read at face value and think that it is the truth. So with that, I want to thank Tim and Jen for joining us for this episode. And we all hope that today's conversation has given you plenty to reflect on as you think about the ideas from these chapters. Be sure to join us again in 2 weeks when we will dive into Chapter 5 of Digital for Good. And this next discussion will focus on what it means to be inclusive and how we can thoughtfully balance multiple viewpoints in digital spaces.